All right, welcome back to another, and this time the final reflection video. We're going to get to the bottom of all of this. We're going to talk about the macro research, the micro research. It's going to be lots of fun. So, first of all, congratulations on everyone making it this far. Semesters are challenging. We all made it through together. Good stuff, guys. All right, so yeah, the last two big assignments, obviously, we had the FMS and McGill assignment, the multi-stepper, and then after that, the strength and balance assignment. Both of these dealt with kind of some of the pitfalls of research, and I think really touched on our own pedestal syndromes and internal biases, which I think was very cool. I think both of them were structured in such a way that we were able to maybe explore a fatal flaw or several fatal flaws that kind of exist in current research, and I think that was really cool. So with those in mind, let's go ahead down to the questions here. So I'm reading straight off the page. What do you think I was ultimately trying to accomplish with these assignments? Well, again, I think in both cases, both of the multi-part assignments, we got a chance to explore kind of in a real-world capacity how sometimes statistics can be misleading based on context that biases one way or the other. So when we thought about the FMS and McGill study, the things that they were trying to prove the FMS did was not what it was created to do. So from the beginning, there was kind of a bias that the FMS was not going to perform well, and it didn't in predicting athletic performance because, again, that's not what it's supposed to do. The second assignment on strength and balance, kind of the same thing. So we got to look at two different published articles that basically took completely contrary stances, and both did a pretty good job of making their points. So I think getting to explore both of those again. The flaws in both of them was the reason for the assignments. At least that's what I believe. Why do you think the assignments were structured the way that they were? Again, I think it was to make us think critically about how we take in information and how we put our own biases and viewpoints together with that information to reach individualized conclusions. This gave us the chance to explore how different articles affect different people and what different people take away from different things. Okay, so next one. What do you think the larger lesson or takeaway was supposed to be? I think the large lesson from both of these assignments is that one piece of evidence does not a fact make. So you can't take one study and just run with it in terms of, oh, this must be right or this must be wrong. You have to look at the totality of the body of evidence before you can start making decisions like that, because surveys and studies and all these different published works can have so many different flaws in terms of how they're structured, the context of it, what they leave out, how they manipulate the data. So in every case, one piece of literature does not make a true fact of a principle. It is more based on the total body of evidence that we as a scientific community have been able to put together over a number of years. So some of these important questions at the end. What did this mean for you? I think for me, this is very affirming because I've always believed that you should be tough in your beliefs. And even when people disagree with you or you feel discouraged because of contrary evidence, you need to try and understand the process more and kind of, explore your principles and look at the totality of all evidence versus just changing your mind, So I think, again, this is a reminder to stay tough in your principles. And when you read research, keep in mind that every study can have a little bit of bias. We bring our own bias to all these studies when we come into it. And for this reason, you just need to not freak out when you read a shocking piece of evidence. What did you discover about the process? I think this has taught me a lot about how to read through the methods section and the results section of studies and kind of glean meaning from how they structure their findings. So I think when I was reading research previously, I would always read the whole article, but maybe didn't look as closely into how they interpret the results and what exactly they were looking for out of the way that they were using the statistics. So I think this has taught me a lot about going through like the results section, going through the larger discussion sections at the end, really kind of deep diving and looking at the numbers to understand more where the researchers are coming from. What did you discover about the results from the surveys? I think a lot of this made a great deal of sense. So the FMS and McGill assignment, the fact that they were trying to predict for athletic performance, I think is very reflective of a lot of exercise science right now, and it's people using incorrect tools. You're just using the wrong tool for the job. So I think, that was very informative in that, I know now to be more careful of that. When you read a study, really try and find out what are they looking for and what, going into it, could I have predicted, yeah, of course that's not going to work, or like, yeah, that was going to work, or, whatever. The results end up being. What do surveys like this tell us? What do they not tell us? I think they don't tell us context. I think, knowing how people reach their conclusions is important because, that leads to the kind of discourse that actually, is beneficial in exercise science and in all sciences, I guess. What do they not tell us? I don't think they tell us. Yeah, I think they don't tell us context around people's decision making. I think that's important sometimes. I think they tell us, in a very broad sense, kind of what the average scientific breakdown is like. In that, I think you mentioned when you do this with a larger size class, the percentages are around the same. So I think it does tell us like what an accurate representation of the larger scientific community is and how it operates. So I think that was very cool also. And ultimately, what does this tell you about the research landscape? I think that what it tells me is that all information is good in the right context. So there will always be studies probably contrary on every side of every problem. Everything you could possibly try and figure out scientifically, I'm sure there are two sides arguing about who's right. So I think what this tells me is when someone presents me with a study, I can't take it at face value to be fact. I have to, again, look at the larger body of literature and try to understand how it fits in context with all of this other information. I think that speaks to how careful we should be when we read research, how hard to convince we should be, how resilient in our principles and our thinking we should be. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the final reflection. Happy end of the semester, guys. I hope you have a wonderful summer. Good talking to you.